Hello and welcome to the Art of Decluttering podcast. I'm your host, Amy Revell. I want you to picture this. You are moving house. You have spent the last couple of weeks packing up all your possessions. You've packed your boxes really well. You've made sure your breakables are, supported with packing and you've really spent time. You've touched every single item that you own, which is such a unique experience in moving house. You've packed it all into boxes. You've booked the moving company. You've got your date. You and the family, you get in the car. You don't have anything in the car because the removalists have got everything that you need. And you turn up to the new house and the removalist truck isn't there. And half an hour later, they're still not there. And so you ring the company and you find out that there was no removalist that they sent out, that actually you've been scammed. I want you to think about what would happen if all of your possessions just disappeared. And funnily enough, it was actually a question that someone emailed me with this week. It was a marketing company saying, you should use this particular moving company, and saying, we won't lose your stuff. They were saying, what would clients do if their removalists just took every single thing they owned and just never showed up at the new house and you could never find them? Not that the possessions were broken, not that it was in storage somewhere, not that it was all insured and the company was going to repay you for it, but you got scammed. All your stuff went missing. Now, it's an unlikely scenario, but today's episode, I want it to be a real thought experiment for us because I can't stop thinking about what would happen if I put every possession I own in a truck and I thought that truck was turning up at my new house and it never turned up. It's just like playing over and over again in my head for the last week. And so I thought it was only fair that I chatted about it with you as well. The thought experiment is what would happen if every physical possession you owned disappeared like that? You didn't get to decide when it was going to happen. You didn't know that it was coming. You expected it all to turn up and there's nothing. It does not turn up. What you have is the clothes on your back. You have your car, you have your family, and that's about it. You probably have your phones and that's it. So I want to talk about what do we do? What would you do? It's a really good thought experiment to understand what is important to you and process through what would happen if this happened. So a couple of questions we're going to think about is what would you replace within the first 24 hours? What would you get back in the car for, go to the shops, and you would replace absolutely immediately? What things would you would never bother replacing? And what things would you possibly forget you even owned? If someone came in and took them, you couldn't even remember that you owned it. You couldn't put a name to it. You couldn't remember what was in that box. What would you miss? What would you feel relieved about? Maybe there's some decisions that you would think, oh, thank goodness somebody else took that decision off my hands. And what items would you grieve? And what does that tell you about your relationship with your stuff? So that first question, what are you going to replace in the first 24 hours? Everything's gone. Your beds are gone. Your linen's gone. You don't have a towel to shower with. You don't have soap for the shower. You don't have a pillow to put your head on. You don't have socks to put on when you get there. Everything is gone. And so you might replace medications would be something you'd replace pretty quickly. You'd need some clothes. You'd need at least a couple of outfits, some socks and undies and things like that, some pajamas. Maybe you'd need a couple of phone chargers. You might need a bed. Let's assume that what you buy is you've got the ability, that's going to be the thing you replace it with. So we're not going to go you're going to get an air mattress. No. You're going to go get some beds for your family, some linen, some pillows, some towels. You're going to get some essentials for the kitchen. So maybe a pot and a frying pan, some cutlery and crockery for the amount of people in your family. You may not go out and buy a 20 set like you currently have. You might just replace what you actually need. You might buy a kettle or a microwave. It would actually, in the scheme of things, I think, be quite a small amount of stuff. I think that you would kind of instantly know what the things are that you'd need to replace in 24 hours. And they're the things that you need, that are essential, that are critical to kind of your comfort, your safety, your functionality, and you would replace those. And then you get maybe 3 or 4 days in and there starts to be things that are annoying that you didn't have. And you're like, oh, no one thought about buying coat hangers. Okay, yeah, we better go get some coat hangers. Oh, where are we going to put our clothes? Oh, we might need a chest of drawers. And so you start to add to things. But my hypothesis is that you wouldn't replace most of what was taken. Some of the stuff you wouldn't replace because you totally forgot that you even owned it. There's lots of these videos online of someone, they go to their parents' house and they steal stuff. Don't steal from your parents. That's not very nice. But it's uncanny how few things we notice if someone came and took them. So even if Cal said to me, all right, for the next 30 days, I'm going to hide something every day. I'm aware of it. I'm going to hide something every day until you notice. I think it would take a while. He could hide things in our house, hide outfits, hide bathroom products, hide ornaments, and it would probably take a little while for me to notice that things were going missing. And so when this whole truck of your life disappears and you don't know where it's gone, you can't buy it back, you can't negotiate it back, you don't get money back for it, I think it really is interesting what you're going to go and buy. So those are the essentials, that first 24 hours. And then there's things that you're not going to bother replacing. So you know that you had them, you're not going to bother. So for me, that would look like I'm probably not going to replace any books. I might miss some of the books that I have. I don't have a lot, as I've told you before. But you might not replace them. You might just think, oh, well, if I want to read it again, then I'll reacquire it or I'll borrow it or I'll read it in a different format. You might find that there are things like kids' artwork that you go, oh, well, I actually just can't replace those items. And so there's things that you go, I'm not going to replace that purely because I can't. So let's separate out then. You've got kind of these sentimental and memory things, and then you've got the things that are just kind of you forgot you owned them or you're not going to go back and use them. So it might be like, if again, bathroom products. Let's think about this. If I came into your bathroom and took every single bathroom product, so you weren't there, you didn't know and remember what you have, what are you going out and getting? How many items do you actually need in your bathroom? Do you need a deodorant and a shampoo and a conditioner, and maybe you need a hair product, and you might need a little bit of makeup and some skin products, but you probably don't need all the stuff you currently have in the bathroom. Our bathroom flooded a couple of weeks ago. A tap burst, completely came apart. We had to turn the water off at the mains, but everything under the kids' bathroom sink was ruined and had to go in the bin. We didn't replace any of it. I was so surprised. I thought there would be some things that like, okay, we have to go and replace that. And actually, for the most part, we were able to say, if we need that again, that's the time that we'll replace it. When we're thinking about things that you might not replace, there might be kitchen appliances or, serving platters or picnic sets, things that you currently have that are not really adding a whole lot of value. And if it disappeared, you wouldn't replace it. And then we've got the sentimental things that you may not be able to replace. You may not be able to replace your wedding album, your kids' artwork, or your grandma's recipe book. And so those things you would feel sad about, right? Like you would think, oh, I wish that I still had those. And what I want to acknowledge is this scenario may have in effect happened for some of you via house fire or flood or theft or having to flee domestic violence. There might be scenarios where you have literally lost everything but the clothes on your back. So this is not a hypothetical for you. This is something you've lived through. And if that is you, I would love to hear from you. I'd love to find out how that has impacted the relationship that you have with your stuff. I might even get you on as a guest on the show. But if nothing else, share your experience, jump on our Facebook community and share it there. Because people like myself who have never lost everything, sometimes it's perspective giving just to hear somebody else's story. So we'd love to hear that. So when we're talking about those things that we can't replace, the grief associated with that, sometimes we get creative. So if you lost all of your photos, could you go onto social media and download some of the photos you've uploaded in the past? Could you speak to your best friend or a family member and say, we've lost everything. Have you got any photos of our kids? Do you have some backed up on a drive somewhere in the cloud, or do you have a hard drive? Actually, the hard drive would have gone, so forget that one. But you might have something in the cloud, or you might have family members who have collected photos, or you've emailed in the past. Sometimes we think that the memories will disappear if the item disappears. But sometimes the memory can still be inside of us. And so it's actually just about finding a way to have objects that trigger that memory. And they don't have to be the objects themselves. It might just be that you write down by hand some of the recipes that you had in your grandma's recipe book. You may not get them all, but you might have a couple. And so we're reintegrating those memories without feeling like, oh my goodness, all my stuff has been stolen. I have nothing left. That truck has gone. And now all my memories have disappeared as well. Actually, a lot of those memories are in you or in the people around you. And so you can kind of start to regather some of those if that was the case. So we're just thinking about how do we rebuild memories what would we get back? What would be liberating? The things that you're like, well, I did keep that artwork that my grandfather gave me, but I've never liked it. And I've always kind of wished I could get rid of it, but I've always felt a little bit guilty about it. The liberation of having someone come in, that truck disappears with grandpa's artwork in it, and that can be liberating. So there will be some things, and think about these things, because as you think about it, maybe that's an idea that you can start to loosen your grip or make a decision about those items that you're like, yeah, that I would feel liberated if that left my house. I would feel liberated if the upright piano that nobody uses and only gathers dust, if somebody came and took that from my house, that would be liberating. Maybe that's a trigger to now be thinking, well, what can I do to experience that feeling now, that feeling of liberation of space back? What will your repurchase list say about you? I think it will tell you what's important to you, what you value, how you function in your home, how you care for the people in your home, because you will repurchase some things, but you absolutely will not repurchase everything. And for some people, the tight hold you have on your possessions will mean that this thought experiment makes you feel a little bit sick in the stomach of like, oh my goodness, what would happen if everything was lost? And for others who don't have quite as strong a hold on their possessions might be thinking, but Amy, that actually doesn't sound too bad. I wouldn't mind booking a truck. They take everything and then I just repurchase what I need. And it helps you understand your relationship with your stuff, which is what I want this episode to do. I want you to think about, in what areas do I have so much stuff I wouldn't even notice? If I took all your clothes, if I was the truck driver and I came in, I packed all your clothes and I drove off, and then I called you with a ransom. And I said, for every item of clothing that you can correctly name and describe, I will bring it back. How many items would you get back? My guess is that you might get 15, 20% of your wardrobe back if you had to describe the item, whether it was the color, the style, the brand, some descriptor that would mean that the clothes came back to you. I think it would be really hard. And I think it would be hard if someone said, I've taken everything out of your lounge room. Everything you can name, you can have back. I've taken every book off your bookshelf. Every book you can name, you can have back. I think we would be surprised by the amount of stuff that we've forgotten that we own, we can't name, that actually isn't bringing any value. And so, sometimes I'll do this with clients as a joke, where we'll get a box and they're like, I don't know what's in there. And I'll say, anything you can name in here, you can keep, as a joke, just kind of to make the point of, we don't even know what's in there. So if that box was gone, you wouldn't know what to miss. Isn't that interesting? If you don't know what to miss, do you really own it? Or is it just clutter? Is it just taking up space in your home? So the hardest question would be, is if you got to save 10 items before that truck disappears with every possession you own, what would you keep? And I'm guessing you're not keeping your toaster, your hair straightener, your exercise bike, the picture on your wall. I'm guessing that you're keeping some things that are sentimental, really important to you, and things that can't be replaced. And then I want to know, where in the house are you currently keeping those items? Are you honoring them? So you did want to keep your grandma's cookbook. When was the last time you cooked something from there? When was the last time you opened it up and flipped through it just to see her handwriting, or just to remember that, oh my goodness, I definitely don't like apricot chicken and I'm never cooking that one again? When was the last time the photos that you would save if you had the 10 items? When was the last time you looked through them? Do you have any of them displayed? Do you have a way to enjoy them and have those memories? Because again, by knowing what we would pull back, what we would save if the truck was about to drive out of our driveway, is a good way to know what is important to us. What do we value? So this thought exercise is meant to help you know, actually, I probably can get rid of some of that stuff because I wouldn't care. I wouldn't even notice that it was gone. But also, gee, there really are some important things in my home, important possessions that are part of my identity. So start celebrating them, start going to them, start referencing them, start having them out so that you can enjoy them, so that those memories are fresh, so that those memories can be passed on. Because while they're in a box at the back of your wardrobe, you kind of effectively forget that you even own them. It's a bit of a challenging one. It's a great thought experiment. What would you do if a truck came, took every single possession that you owned? Once you'd replaced those essentials in the first 24 hours, what's coming next? What are you missing? What are you glad that they took? What are you buying again? What have you completely forgotten about? I hope it's been a helpful way to think about your possessions. Make sure you reach out. I really want to hear from you if you have lost everything. I think that's a really interesting conversation to have. So just email me hello@theartofdecluttering.com.au or jump into our Facebook community. Love to hear from you. And until next week, enjoy the freedom.